الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنكمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، واجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأكل يا غفور أثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وأثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره، وحمده الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يده، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما، إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير مع حاجة بي إليه عظيما، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطأي وعمدي، أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وعريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك. فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني أتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي. يا ربي إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك. كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي، والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل، وجد علي بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالك الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول عناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بودا فلا يراه وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعازده. قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظمى، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وعناسي، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعزيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونكة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا واذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يحتك حجابه ولا يغلق بابه ولا يرد سائله ولا يخيب عامله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الحاربين نقال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم صل على محمد وآله. اللهم صل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب رب العالمين. عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمام الهدى الحسن والحسين سيد شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الحادي المهدي. حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم صل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك. استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله. مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له. أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به وانصره وانتصر به وانصره نصرا عزيزا وافتح له فتحا يسيرا واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا وما كسرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا واشعب به صدعنا وارتق به فتكنا وكثر به كلتنا وعازز به زلتنا وأغن به عائلنا واجزي به عن مجرمنا واجبر به فقرنا وسد به خلتنا ويسر به أسرنا وبيز به وجوهنا وفك به أسرنا وانجح به طلبتنا وانجز به مواعيدنا واستجب به دعوتنا واعتنا به سؤلنا وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا واعتنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشفي به صدورنا وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إلى الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله وغيبة ولينا وكثرة عدونا وقلة عددنا وشدة الفتن بنا وتظاهر الزمان علينا فصل على محمد وآله وعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تؤجله وبضر تكشفه ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Ahsantum, jazakumullah. Let us remember in our du'as the marhumin of our families, our community, the ulama and shuhada of Islam, and in particular the marhumin of the sponsors of today's program, the family of Kawal and Khurram Naqvi. For the following marhumin, we are requested to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, Sayyid Baryab Hussain, Sayyida Shabana Qamar, Sayyid Ali Sibti Raza, Sayyida Mateen Fatima, and for Ghulam Hussain Ali Bhai, for the Ali Bhai family, as well as for all your marhumin. Please recite Surah Fatiha after Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. In discussing the attributes that Ahlul Bayt ﷺ have given an emphasis to, either the positive attributes that we should aspire to or the negative attributes that we should avoid, we mentioned two attributes yesterday, and I would like to look at just a few more ahadith that discuss these attributes. One is daja, which is to become bored. And the other is kasal, to be lazy or indolent or not to make the effort to do things that we are able to do. Basically, to set low goals for oneself and therefore not to try to accomplish much. Now that is something that of course, is harmful for our material life, and we have probably experienced it and seen it, and we can understand it, but it is also harmful for our religious life. If I set my horizon low, the best that I aspire to, for example, is that I'm going to say my 5 prayers on time. Yes, if I am not doing that, then that is my initial task. That is an obligation. It's not a choice. It's not a favor that I am doing to Allah. But that is a very low bar. to say that "Panch waqt ka namazi hoon," I pray 5 times a day. That's not what we should aspire to. That's not what our horizon should be. If that's what we think is the sign of a good believer, then that's probably as far as we will go. And we will struggle even to meet that standard. We have to put in front of us those ideal personalities who had achieved the pinnacle of human perfection. And then look at their character and try to develop it and realize that we are capable of also becoming not just a halfway good Muslim, but somebody who is truly representative of the practice and the values of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam. Set a high standard and consider ourselves able to achieve it. Not on our own terms, not by our own strength, but through the grace of Allah, by relying on Him, by praying to Him for His guidance and His assistance, we are able to become worthy of the practice and the character of Ahlul Bayt. When I set a high standard, then I will be motivated to try to adopt those practices that Ahlul Bayt had. Rather than say that I'm going to do something minimal, something maybe just symbolic, I will try to do something substantial, something meaningful, and something lasting with my time and with my life. So having a sense of our religious potential helps us avoid being bored. It helps us avoid being lazy because we realize how much there is that we are capable of accomplishing, and it motivates us to try to accomplish it. Another attribute that helps us is to avoid excessive joking. And that's one of the problems with our modern society. Humor is good. And in fact, if you look at the practice of our Prophet and Imam Ali alayhi salatu wassalam, you will find Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad that the Prophet was known to be humorous. Some of the companions, the image they had of a prophet or a religious person or the leader of society was somebody who would be very strict. They didn't dare criticize Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for his humor. But when Imam Ali followed in the footsteps of the Prophet and he would be lighthearted and he would be humorous, they criticized him and said that's one reason why he's not worthy of being the caliph or being the successor to the Prophet, because he is too lighthearted and humorous. So humor and lightheartedness is good. But there is a certain kind of humor that we as Muslims are to appreciate. One is the humor should not be hurtful or put down or insult other people. It shouldn't be based on falsehood and lying. You know how people will prank each other through lies, through misleading. So that is not the type of humor that Islam is encouraging us towards. We should not have humor that puts down other people. And we should not laugh in a loud and undignified manner. That kind of laughter also is not encouraged in Islam. But within those parameters, with dignity and with respect, to joke, to be humorous is good. Excessive humor, however, is something that Islam has discouraged and frowned upon. We find in a hadith of Prophet Muhammad to Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, Ya Ali la tamzah, fayadhhaba baha'uk. Don't be a joker, because your dignity will be decreased. And if someone is asking then, what kind of joke should I tell? What kind of joke should I not tell? On the one hand, we are told to be humorous and lighthearted. On the other hand, we are told not to be a joker. Well, this hadith answers that question. فَيَذْهَبَ بَهَاؤُكَ. If the type of joke that I am telling, the type of humor that I am speaking, reduces my dignity, it's undignified, then that is not the type of humor that Islam is encouraging. Other than that, Islam very much encourages good humor and lightheartedness. What is the problem in our present culture? In our present culture, in many cases, comedy is seen as a way not just to have lighthearted, humorous moments and relaxation, but it is seen as one of the main ways to communicate and even to process information and news. And that is not the sign of a healthy society. It's one thing if I look at serious topics seriously, and then I'm also able to see the humor in them. But for many people, they don't think about important life issues seriously at all. The only window they have to news, to current events, to many kind of discussions within the family is through the lens of irony and comedy and sarcasm, and that is not healthy. Yes, if I have an appreciation for a serious subject, as a serious subject, I think about it, I study what I need to study, I make decisions that I need to make, and then I also see the lighthearted aspect of getting stuck in traffic, for example, or my job. That's not harmful. But if I don't take my job seriously at all, I don't take my studies seriously at all, I don't take my life responsibilities seriously at all, I don't take current events seriously, and I just look at it through the lens of a comic or some other kind of sarcasm, then I am not ever going to be able to understand my responsibilities or deal with them in a proper, dignified, and mature way. And that is a very common problem in our society. Comedy has been elevated in a way that detracts from the seriousness of life. Nothing is wrong with comedy if it is dignified, if it is meaningful, but in its proper place, to bring lightheartedness and enjoyment, and not to substitute for what is meaningful and what is serious. So we can see there is no contradiction. On the one hand, Islam wants us, and our Prophet and our Imams themselves were humorous. But on the other hand, they don't want us to be the class clown. They don't want us to be the prankster or the jokester that nobody takes seriously. Ya Ali la tamzah fayadhhaba baha'uk. Don't be that kind of a joker, and then your dignity will be lost. Wala takdhib fayadhhaba nuruk. Don't lie, because that will take away the light from your soul, the light from your person. Wa iyyaka wa khaslatayn. And the Prophet says, "Oh, Imam Ali, avoid two attributes, al-dajar wal-kasal. Avoid laziness and avoid boredom. فَإِنَّكَ إِن ضَجِرْتَ لَمْ تَصْبِرْ عَلَى حَقٍّ. If you allow yourself to become bored, and it is always a choice that we make, then you're not going to have patience to do what is good. You'll start reading Dua Kumail, and a minute later, your mind will wander. You'll start Salat, and just after you say Takbiratul Ihram, you'll be distracted by some unrelated thoughts. Whatever good deed you are going to do, you'll immediately want to be somewhere else. And what is the result? The result is that you won't get the benefit of what you are doing, and generally will cut it short because of boredom. That is not because what we are doing is boring. It is because we have trained ourselves to listen to every distraction. We have not readied ourselves to be able to focus and to take advantage of these du'as, these opportunities for worship and getting closer to Allah. إِن ضَجِرْتَ لَمْ تَصْبِرْ عَلَى حَقٍّ. If you give way to boredom, you're not going to have patience to do what is right, what is haqq. وَإِن كَسِلْتَ لَمْ تُؤَدِّ حَقَّهُ. And if you are lazy, then you will not fulfill anyone's rights. You will stand back, whether the rights of Allah or the rights of people, you will not fulfill them. يَا عَلِيمًا اسْتَوْلَى عَلَيْهِ الضَّجَرُ رَحَلَتْ عَنْهُ الرَّاحَةُ. Many times, people want to take it easy, avoid responsibility. They allow themselves to become lazy and bored because of raha. They want to have comfort and ease. I don't want to take a hard major because I want to have an easy time in school or in college. I don't want to study to do the best I can do in the test because I want to take it easy. And the Prophet says that be aware, Man istawla alayhi ad-dajar, if this attribute becomes dominant in you, boredom and laziness, rahalat anhu ar-raha. You're doing it to try to take it easy, but it is going to take away that comfort and that ease. If you don't put in the effort and the focus at the proper time, then you are going to have to do much more work and suffer much more later on. And that is the natures. We seek ease, and that is exactly what takes away our ease and our peace of mind. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The next attribute that we would look at is what is known as tama'. Tama' is covetousness, seeking something that is not rightfully ours, does not belong to us, and in particular, seeking something that belongs to somebody else. It is very closely related to envy, but tama' specifically is that when I see somebody else enjoying a blessing, I can't be happy for them. Instead, I immediately want it for myself. Envy is also with an attribute of ill will towards the other person. So hasad means that I wish a blessing to be removed from the other person. And that is why hasad has been very strongly condemned, because it is a form of animosity, spreading a poison in society by speaking ill or acting in an unkind manner to others. Tama' does not mean that I necessarily have any ill will to another person, but it means that I am grabby and desirous of the good things that other people have. That should also be distinguished from another attribute, which is ghibta. Ghibta means that if I see somebody else with a good attribute, then I want Allah to also give it to me. And there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody has a blessing, and you say, you know what, that would be really nice. Maybe I didn't even know, for example, that there was a piece of technology that could solve that problem, that could cook me healthy French fries. I'm only giving that example because it's not long until iftar time. And now I find this person with this wonderful contraption in their kitchen, and I say, I would like to have it too. That's not tama'. Ghibta is not something negative. You don't have any ill will to the other person. You're not demanding something from Allah, but you see a good thing that another person has and you seek it. Now, that's a material example. Ghibta, best expressed, is for good attributes. When I see that you have ilm, when I see that your recitation of the Quran is very beautiful, when I see that you are generous, and I say, if only I could develop that attribute as well. Not for the air fryer or for the fancy phone, but for good attributes. That is not something that is negative. In fact, it is highly praised to have ghibta. Tama' is something else. Tama' is, I want that. And then you demand it, and you become distracted from other things. Hasad, because it has ill will, it is like a poison, a fire that burns your faith. But tama' is something that burns you more than it damages your relationships. It poisons your own soul, and it takes away your ability to have perspective and have peace of mind. And so it is a very negative attribute that we should be aware of and we should avoid. According to a hadith from our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam, he says, رَأَيْتُ الْخَيْرَ قَدْ اجْتَمَعَ فِي قَطْعِ الطَّمَعِ عَمَّا فِي أَيْدِ النَّاسِ. All good has been collected in one attribute. All good things, they are collected in one attribute, and that is قَطْعُ الطَّمَعِ, to cut off that grabbiness, that covetousness from what other people have. Don't look at other people and say, they have this, I want this. You visit somebody's house, and all of a sudden you have a shopping list of what you need. You watch a show or a YouTube video, and all of a sudden you have to remodel your entire house and change your whole life, and you have to upgrade your phone and your technology, and that is tama'. Goodness, Imam Zainul Abidin, comes from qat'u tama' amma fi aydin nas. Not trying to always get for myself what I see in the hands of other people. These are things that in this materialistic society we have to think about, and we have to actually work hard on, because our media and our general culture, it encourages us to be more tamma', to have a greater kind of grabbiness, a greater kind of covetousness. One of the effects of tama' is that it also brings you down, because it shows up in how you talk, in what you think about. It affects your character, and therefore it brings dhillah. It brings a lack of honor to a person. And we have many ahadith from our imams that tell us, مَا أَقْبَحَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِ أَن تَكُونُ لَهُ رَغْبَةٌ تُذِلُّ. It is a disgrace for a believer to have a desire that brings them down. Whether it be a hobby, whether it be covetousness, any kind of a desire that is undignified. That is something that a believer should work to eliminate from their personality, from their words, and from their deeds. According to our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salatu wassalam, a person once came to the Prophet and said that I would like a piece of advice for my akhlaq. Allimni ya Rasulallah. Give me some guidance. How can I be a better person? And it is this danger of tama' that the Prophet mentioned for that person. This was the akhlaq lesson. And I've already been too wordy, but the Prophet ﷺ, in a single sentence, gave an entire lesson. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He said, عليك باليأس مما في أيدي الناس فإنه الغنى الحاضر. Don't have any kind of covetousness or any kind of desire for what other people have. That is immediate wealth. You don't need to save up for it and plan for it and wait for it. Once you cut off any kind of covetousness, then you have an immediate wealth in your hand. The person said, Zidni ya Rasulallah. O Messenger of Allah, Tell me more. Now, generally, when we are given that opportunity, we might speak more and more, but our Prophet ﷺ, he just repeated a similar message in one sentence, and that was sufficient. He said, إِيَّاكَ وَالطَّمَعَ فَإِنَّهُ الْفَقْرُ الْحَاضِرُ. This is contained within the previous advice. Don't have tama'. Don't covet what other people have, because that is immediate poverty. Even if you're wealthy, but you're covetous, then no matter how big your house, if you're looking at a person with an even bigger house, you're poor. And if you don't have tama', then you might have a simpler residence, but you are wealthy. Very comprehensive, very beautiful advice from our Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, that we should avoid tama'. And then the positive attribute contrasting with tama' is ya'as. Ya'as has two meanings, because ya'as means not to have hope. We should never have ya'as from Allah. So hopelessness is a bad thing if I have hopelessness in Allah. God's mercy encompasses all things, and I should always have hope in the mercy of Allah. But there is a positive meaning for ya'as, and that is ya'as mimma fi aydin nas. Not to have hopes and desires with regard to what other people have. That is a positive kind of loss of hope, which is I don't care, I don't seek the wealth and the pleasures of this world, and I am pleased with what Allah has decreed. May Allah grant us these positive attributes that build our character and our faith, and give us tranquility and success in this world and salvation in the hereafter, and assist us in avoiding those attributes that are of damage to our soul and our worldly life. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We have about 5 minutes until it is time for Salat. We will go into the other hall for Salatul Maghribain. Then gentlemen will come back in this hall for Iftar, and ladies will stay in the other hall. A reminder that we have a celebration of the birth of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salatu wassalam tomorrow, immediately after Iftar. And just coming up, we will have the majalis for Amir al-Mu'mineen, as well as the a'mal of Laylatul Qadr. Those will be in person, and please do make an effort to attend those very important observances. Our coming together and remembering Ahlul Bayt and praying to Allah has a special blessing and barakah, and inshallah we will avail these nights to remember Ahlul Bayt and to come closer to Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we can move to the other hall, inshallah, and prepare for Salat.